All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you to those of you who are here in the room for coming, and those of you who are joining us online. We're excited to have you here. We're going to get started. Find my seat. We're sitting here. Okay. So thanks for coming to our panel today. Everything I did wrong as the Outstanding Graduate. I wanted to start by telling you what the Outstanding Graduate Award is. It's awarded by the ASU Alumni Association. Each college selects a recipient that's an undergraduate student. It's a combination of academic performance, extracurricular involvement, and community activities. So it's a pretty big deal. There's only whatever that is, 13, 14 of them a year that receive this award, one from each college. Why we chose to convene this panel of students is we were brainstorming ideas for a program about academic success. And what we didn't want to do was have another program about study skills or how to take notes or something like that, that was just like something to learn. What we wanted to do was something a little bit different. We've encountered in our travels a lot of students who want to do it all, be it all, try it all, have every major and minor that the university offers. And we thought, who better to reflect on trying to have it all than the students who were like that when they were here? So they're laughing because it's true. So we asked some old friends who were former students, former winners of the Outstanding Graduate Award, to share their reflections on their time being sort of an overachiever, and talk about sort of, as they've looked back, what really mattered to them during their time here and as they've moved in. So let me introduce the five folks who are talking today. From the 2016 graduating class, he's a sustainable event specialist with Meet Green. I believe he's joining us from Portland, Oregon right now. That's Garrett Wong on the video screen. Garrett, oh yeah. In the room here, she's the student engagement coordinator for the College of Global Futures from the class of 2017, Maria Eller. From the class of 2018, she's the program manager for Project Cities in the Sustainable Cities Network, Julia Davis. On the video from 2019, she's the head of sustainability for Estancia Assisted Living. That's Mariam Abdul Rashid. And then also in the room from the class of 2020, didn't really get a real graduation, but she was the best one at the fake graduation. She's the environmental programs and innovation specialist for the city of Phoenix. This is Danielle Vermeer. So I can tell you, having been the academic advisor / club advisor of all of these students, that we have people who've won prestigious national awards and fellowships in the room, folks who started their own clubs or led clubs, who traveled across the country representing the school's sustainability. This was pre-College of Global Futures. Who were community assistants, who went on to great graduate programs. These are some impressive folks. And I don't say that just because they all said yes when I sent them a message saying, would you do this? So to start, the first question I have for all of our panelists, and maybe we can just kind of go in the order of your year, is to start, if you could just tell us a little bit about you as an undergraduate student. What were the highlights of your experience that you think led you to be called the Outstanding Graduate for your year? So we'll start with Garrett.
Well, geez, thanks for having me, everybody. Sad I can't be there, but happy to tune in and help in any way I can, I guess. Kevin mentioned a few accolades or positions, if you want to call them. I guess within my wheelhouse, I was the CA for the then School of Sustainability Community. For 1 year, I did it for the international students and upperclassmen housing as well for another year, but all over at Adelphi 2. Not sure if that still exists, but if it does, hope the garden's going strong. And then was also the student ambassador for then the School of Sustainability, alongside Julia and a few others. Was able to represent the university, be able to learn from other professionals in their own right and be able to bring that knowledge back to the undergraduate class and help even recruit a few students to come to ASU that were interested in sustainability. I'd say that's maybe a few reasons. I don't entirely know, but I'll pass it off to Maria.
Well, Kevin and I actually found a little bit about being an outstanding graduate, and the reasons. So it's humbling. Thank you all for being here. And I would say, so as an as an undergraduate student, I was quite focused and ambitious. I had the audacity as a first-year student to say that we should reorganize a club called Sustainability Buddies. Um, and really built that out. Then some other things in my undergrad career was a fellow for the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars Program. I went as an exchange student to Halifax, Nova Scotia for the Killam Fellowship. Yeah, and volunteered, and you all in the room and probably online, I've told you a bunch about being a student, so I'm going to pass it over to Julia.
Hi, everyone. I know some of you from Project Cities, which is exciting. But when I was an undergrad, I always joked with Kevin that I was an out-of-state student, so I literally had no friends when I moved here. And I was like, well, the only way to make friends is to join student clubs. And so when I was an undergrad, I was an ambassador for SOS with Garrett, worked on Sustainability Buddies with Maria. I'm kind of building that again from the ground up with her, and then serving as president eventually of that. And then I was the president of the School of Sustainability College Council for a year or two, many late nights, early mornings with Abby, planning events and going to the Grand Canyon, all those types of things. I went on a couple different study abroad trips, one longer research trip, so took advantage of the Walton, Sustainability Solution Services scholarships at the time. And then I was a student worker and intern for various programs at the university, as well as, I don't know, never sleeping, doing as many classes as possible. So like Maria, pretty ambitious and driven, but yeah, was in a lot of student organizations as a student leader.
We'll go with Maria.
I think it's Mariam.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mariam, and my story is a little bit different. So for you to understand, I'll kind of backtrack. So I'm from Malaysia, and when I first was trying to get a scholarship to come to the States, I was told that sustainability wasn't a major that they wanted to fund because it wouldn't benefit the country. So I fought for my case, like they gave me the scholarship and took it back for that reason. And I still came here anyway. My parents were like, the worst thing that you could that can happen is like they take you back and then you just like come home. But I took a chance. So my perspective when I was trying to come to the United States, majoring in sustainability and being like one of the first people like in Malaysia to actually like major in something so specific like sustainability, I wanted to kind of like make my claim and be like, no, sustainability is important and eventually they're going to be like, it's going to be seen, but that progress, like somebody has to start it. So that's how I saw it. And then I was also, my scholarship, you couldn't get anything less than a 3.75 GPA every semester. If not, you'll get sent home. And so with that, I just wanted to make sure, like, I was like, I needed to excel. I couldn't give them any reason to send me home. Like, I'm in a major that nobody's heard of, plus like, you know, like, so I got good grades because I was like, I couldn't, you know, not get good grades. And then I was very involved because I was an international student. I was a student mentor for a new incoming international students, kind of guiding them through the ASU experience. I joined a business fraternity in the sustainability realm. I was also a community ambassador. But at that point in time, Delphi was like in construction. And so we ended up in the business dorms. And so I was the CA for sustainability, but then after that, I kind of just like stayed in the business dorms. And then I was also associate ambassador, president of the Honor Society for Sustainability, secretary of the Malaysian Student Association. I studied abroad in Ecuador. I believe it was like under the Walton Scholarship. And yeah, joined a shadowing program, like where you get partnered with like an ex-graduate from sustainability to see what they're doing in their field. So that was really interesting. So I think like bundled up with that reason.
I think I am the last one. So my name is Danielle. I would describe myself in undergrad as very anxious about the future, but also very curious about the future. So I tried a lot of clubs and experiences so that I could get an idea of what I didn't like and also what I did like. From an engagement perspective, I was the president of the Peace Corps Club. I was vice president with Mariam for the Honor Society of Sustainability. I was a school ambassador. On the professional side of things, I tried interning with the city of Phoenix as an affordable and sustainable housing intern. I worked for the Sustainability Teachers Academy, as well as a couple of other folks on the panel, right? And that's here on campus. And also becoming a Doris Duke Conservation Scholar with the University of Michigan. You should all look into the program if you haven't heard of it yet. It brings underrepresented folks into the environmental arena, and it let me get to experience new research opportunities. I got to work for the National Wildlife Federation and learn a lot of skills along the way.
So as you can see, not much. And I know there are things they didn't even mention. So the pretty impressive group of students that we have here, or former students that we have here. So our program title is Everything I Did Wrong. So looking back, what would you have done differently as a student if you were to do it again? Were there things you would have spent more or less of your time on? We can just keep going in the same order. Garrett.
Yeah. I was chuckling at this topic of Kevin just texting me being like, hey, here's the idea that we came up with for a panel. What do you think? And I'm like, this list is going to be long, but hopefully there are other folks on this call that can add into that list. So I'll just give one. I think part of, and I think similarly to a lot of folks on this panel, we wanted to do everything, right? And so it's trying to jump in for student leadership here. It's applying for these scholarships. It's looking at internships locally in the Valley. It's trying to do a job shadow with an alum. And so you're trying to move around all these different pieces, primarily externally outside of what the university and what the college are providing. One thing, and I think it was very apparent to me immediately after I graduated in 2016, was I didn't really have a strong connection or like a really good understanding of the work that a lot of the professors at ASU were doing. There were certainly one or two that I still keep in touch with to this day and try to, stay in tune with where their careers have shifted because they, helped me so much in my career. But there's so much great invested knowledge and just a wealth of expertise within even the faculty and the professors that are at ASU and specifically within the College of Global Futures. So definitely trying to hone in on that a little bit more if I could take it all back.
That's interesting. For me, it's that I wish I had spent the time that I was taking to honestly get the A+. Like, I wish I had maybe like underachieved a little bit like in classes and used that amount of time to really build out relationships on campus, primarily with my peers. I mean, school sustainability is and was small, like a smaller program. So I wish I had you know, stronger relationships within just that small, like within the group of peers, but also with folks outside of SOS in different majors, and just been able to learn from them. And part of that is because if I look back on my, after graduating from school, that I've gotten all of my positions through my network, through my peers. And so like I could just imagine, one, like how much broader it could be, but also there's just this bit of being, when you're like in person, when you're just around others, that there's kind of like more opportunity for like serendipity, where maybe they mentioned like another opportunity that they were doing in school. Yeah, so that's what I would do differently.
Mine is the total opposite of Garrett's, actually, which is really funny because we would hang out all the time. So while Garrett was very focused, I think, on external sort of folks or programs and stuff in the Valley, I, from like the age of 5, wanted to go to grad school. So that was like, I'm going to grad school no matter what. So I think I was really focused on kind of having like a lot of good high achieving experiences and being a student leader and stuff in college, but also really wanted to do research and kind of proceed with that in life. And so I was really focused on what faculty were doing at the university. I worked as a student worker research aide with the Decision Center for Desert City, worked for the Sustainability Teachers Academies as well, participated in a couple different research projects, had papers published even before I graduated. So I was very focused on what was going on at ASU. And then when I finished school, I was like, well, I don't really have any other options but to go to grad school because I don't know what I like to do. And finishing grad school, granted, it was pandemic year, so that was tough, but I really hadn't like done a ton of work with local nonprofits or businesses or things in the area. And so in my career now, I've tried to do a lot more with that. And Danielle and I have both participated in the Arizona Forward's Emerging Sustainability Leaders cohort, which has been really great, just meeting people around the Valley that work in sustainability. So I think my thing I would have changed was trying to do more outside of ASU, since there's just so many things going on in the Valley. And like Maria said, there's a lot of serendipity that happens if you're kind of out in your community doing things. So that's what I would have changed. Mario.
So for me, I found out later when I was like graduating that as an international student, if you want to work in the United States, you have to be better than any, like they have to justify hiring you. They can't find anybody else that's American that can work the job in order to be able to hire you. And so for me, if I could go back, I would, instead of doing an internship in Malaysia, I would have found an internship and build more connections in the States. Because I knew that I wanted to stay here after I graduate. And it was really difficult because I graduated in 2020 with my master's, and that's when I like full on went out into the world. And it was like my first job was door knocking because nobody else would give me a job because I was an international student. You automatically, like half of the applications are already denied based on that. So that's definitely something I would change.
Again, I'm the last one, so I have a lot of thoughts, but I will condense. I think academically, I wish that I had taken more classes that I was genuinely interested in, not classes that I thought would look good on my resume, because newsflash, I have never put a class on my resume. And the classes that I remember the most were the classes that I was actually interested in taking. Also, I wish that I had taken more time to go home and see my family. I invited my mom, she's on this call. Hi, Mom. And just taking more time to be present, build those relationships as well.
All right. So you've each now been working for a little while in your careers. Are you leaning more on the course concepts you learned in the classroom, or are you taking more from the experience and the people and all those things outside of the classroom? What are you relying on most from your time as a student? We backwards? Okay. Can we handle backwards?
Okay, we're going backwards.
least something.
Yeah,
Um,
routine and order.
You're the newest and having a career after finishing school, so.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, newest having a career after school. From my classes, I can't emphasize this enough, knowing how to write. You'd be surprised how many people don't know how to write once they get out of college, and particularly writing about really complex ideas in the words of a fifth grader. So being able to like really condense and synthesize, I think that has really stuck with me. I use it pretty much every day. But definitely like the memories that stand out are probably from the experiences doing internships or fellowships and that kind of stuff. Backwards to Mariam.
So for me, it would be that like the fundamental like when you're studying sustainability, it's like the idea of systems thinking, right? And so that's something like it just automatically happens. If there's a problem, I identify if it's like a surface level problem or if it's like the root cause of the problem, and then address like different things that's happening in the company based on that and build systems around that in order to solve them. So like that's something I just can't like destructure my brain not to think. And everybody's just like, all right, if that's a problem, send it to Mariam because she's gonna figure out a solution, even if it's like not sustainability related.
I have the unique experience of getting to use like a lot of my knowledge from classes as well as the skills at the same time. Since one of my first job after grad school was working for the Arizona Sustainability Alliance, and at nonprofits you end up having like 10 different jobs. My end job was programs director, so we had a bunch of different sustainability topic areas and like 20 projects going on all across the state all the time. And so on one call it'd be like, okay, how are we developing a clean energy workforce? And the next call would be like, how are we going to plant 1,000 trees in communities the next year or something? So I think how so set up you learning about lots of different sustainability topics is really nice, since it wasn't like, oh, I was a biology major and I only knew how all that one discipline worked. I felt like SOS really prepared me to be a generalist in a field where I could jump in and learn things really quickly, and didn't necessarily need to be a subject matter expert all the time, but I could easily pick up on things and kind of jump around ideas and support anybody else that I was working with. And even now in Project Cities, as some of you know from working with us, we focus on tons of different types of sustainability projects too. So just having that kind of general knowledge of the field is really helpful, and then being able to dive in where needed. And then from student clubs and stuff, I think it's that leadership and project management experience I use every day in addition to writing. But people are just amazed if you know how to like organize a meeting and like track things in a Trello board or something. It's kind of wild. So make sure you get those project management skills. Listen in your professional skills class. It's there for a reason. So yeah, that's what I use.
All of the above. Well, so you can imagine as student engagement coordinator, I use a lot of the experiences from being in y'all's shoes, and hopefully impart some wisdom off when I do help with your clubs or with programming. So definitely experiences, but I will say that from classes, and I'll just make this really quick, but one of the key classes that I took that I think about often is not a class in my major. It was called musical improvisation. And so it was like a Barrett course. And so we were just like in a room, honestly, like at some point dancing or like making music. It was a great time. But it was really teaching about mindfulness. And I think that that's been something that I've looked back on in all of my kind of random positions that I've had, from working on political campaigns to now. And similarly to Mariam, like I think of sustainability as kind of like a philosophy, like we're learning philosophy, like just we're learning how to think. And so in my role as an organizer in political campaigns, I think it was exactly that. I was working with another SOS alum, Zoe Stein, and we could tell when we were working with with like volunteers or other organizers who like were in sustainability or something similar, because it like could really strategize really well, like could see the points that needed to change, or like you could make the most impact with your efforts. And so that's that. Garrett.
No, I love that, Maria. I think it's definitely 50-50 for me too. Like in terms of the experiences, I'd say for me, because I'm, traveling quite a bit, working with different teams in different cities with different events and conferences, you learn really quickly how to engage with people, work alongside your coworkers, your peers, folks at different agencies and different organizations, and just understanding how people work, how you slot in to either support or to lead. And I think being able to take those experiences both within the classroom on group projects, within student leadership positions, all of that kind of culminating in those experiences of how you engage with people, because even if it's a small team of 5 or a large team of 700, you're going to be working with people. I'd say on the course concepts, it's more the competencies and just the foundational understanding that a lot of us are talking about. When I'm going to a show in Vegas and it's, what's the importance of water in the American Southwest, and specifically what is, this Vegas resort doing well, and what can we improve on within the confines of this event? And then as that show goes from Vegas to Anaheim or Chicago or wherever, some of those core competencies of how we can, make things more efficient, how it's all holistic, and being able to paint that picture for the benefit of these clients and folks that we work with is something that I still chat about on a fairly regular basis, even with folks that are bringing my team and myself on as the sustainability experts. And some of these concepts are either brand new and fresh to them, or even things that they need a little bit of, relearning or catching up on. And it's always fun to bestow that upon folks that have done it much longer than I have, and even some folks that are fresh into their careers and wanting to learn a little bit more about how the sustainability world can help integrate itself into some of these large scale events.
So when you all left school and you started working, I'm curious, what was your blind spot? Was there one thing that you just never learned in school that ended up being really critical to your success? Or more than one thing?
Grant writing. I've had to write so many freaking grants. Yeah, that I was not expecting that. Writing, like Danielle said, was really important. So shout out to SOS for like having such great, I think what that L literacy requirement, had to write a ton in school. But yeah, I think going from academic writing to grant writing and fundraising is really different. I don't know if your brain feel like it broke whenever you had to learn how to do that. But figuring out how to communicate in a new way, I just didn't ever think to take a grant writing class in school. And I don't even know if that would have been helpful, because I wouldn't have been writing a grant for something I was working on. So that was my biggest blind spot. Like day one of work, I was like, oof, okay, this is new. But everything else I think fell into place.
Well, mine was the same thing. So maybe just something to add on to grant writing is also like learning how to create a budget for a project or a grant. I'm in the process of doing that right now, and it's challenging. So if there's an opportunity to take a class maybe through public administration or through a grant writing class, perhaps they teach you that, but I wouldn't know because I never took a grant writing class. I guess, should we go down the line?
We're just completely changing the order. I like it.
One is very specific. I'm gonna popcorn to Garrett or Miriam.
I can jump in quickly if folks are on this call or in the room that were in, it was the 200 something class with then Dean Boone, but I guess most of folks know him as Professor Chris Boone. I don't know. I felt like after I left school and started working, I knew a lot of people, but I didn't know a few people well, if that makes sense. And so really, I mean, my advice that I always give to young professionals, if they're in school, out of school, doesn't really matter. I mean, you need a group of people small, large, doesn't really matter. But just a group of people that can vouch for you, but also folks that you can go to bat for as well. Because I mean, we've mentioned it on this call, that's how you progress in your career. That's how folks learn more from other industries. The 500 plus tab on LinkedIn means absolutely nothing. And I will say it all comes down to the colleagues, professors, seasoned professionals, friends that can go into a, blind reference call that they get on a Wednesday afternoon and speak volumes to the person that you are, the professional that you are, the skills that you bring to the table. That's not gonna push you forward in the next job that you have. That might even push you forward in the current job that you have. And I think that was one thing that for so long in undergrad, I was like, you gotta know more people. It's all about just having this wide range of knowledge so that when you come out of college, you're the most sought after individual on the market. But at the same time, I would go back as I'm transitioning from one internship or going into the next, and I was like, I don't really have a solid connection with the past, boss at my old internship, or I really didn't get a full understanding of what that professor was doing in their research work. And it sounded interesting, but I just never asked. And so really taking that next step to get to know some of those people, to build that relationship, ones that aren't just fruitful for you, but hopefully fruitful for others in the same line of thinking.
I can go next. For me, it was like since I'm like in more of the business setting, learning about like CSR reports, like how to write them, and like the ESG monitoring. There was no like, we learned about it in class, but it wasn't like very specific on like how to do them. And so for me, I had to like, which is, I mean, like if you're in a sustainability major, you just pick a problem and then you go into it without knowing anything and relearning yourself. That was a good skill to have, because that's what when I didn't know how to do it and had to teach myself, that was something that like I used a lot. But then like those like specific skills for CSR reporting and ESG would have been like nice to know before going into a business sustainability field.
Yes, I'll say really briefly, I had to learn how to be a good coworker. That was my blind spot, was I came out of school kind of being, well, yes, I learned to be open to what other people could teach me, and to get to know them personally. And so I learned how to be a better coworker after school.
Feels really specific towards me since we share an office. I'll have to explore that later. Yeah, I know, but she was looking at me the whole time. Okay. So Julia and Danielle, and also Mariam, but the three of you chose to go to graduate school. So when you look back at that decision, and I know you both kind of mentioned that you were really focused on that, but when you look back on the decision, how do you feel about it? Was it the right choice? Was it somewhere in the middle?
Really? No, I went first last time.
Okay. I am really happy that I got my master's degree. I love being a student, but also it's opened a lot of doors for me. So, for example, out of graduate school, I did a fellowship with the City of Phoenix, and the only job requirement for that fellowship is to have a master's degree. And the job that I have now, I am technically not qualified for from an HR perspective. I was able to advocate for myself and say that the master's degree filled the gap in years of experience. And so that's why I get to do the job that I have now. I would emphasize just being very mindful of funding when you're looking into graduate programs. I know that a lot of schools, when I was applying, if you apply by the early deadline, there's like certain pots of funding that are available there that aren't going to still be there later on in the application cycle. So just to start thinking about those things early, but I'm very happy with my decision. Oh, yes. I got a Master of Science in Environment and Sustainability from the University of Michigan.
Mariam, do you want to go?
Yes, so I got my master's in sustainability solutions. So I did the 4+1 program. And for me, I didn't regret my decision because an international student, you get like in order to work, you're placed in a lottery system based on the degree that you're in. So if you're a bachelor's, you have like I think a 10 or 20% chance of being selected. And then it goes up 60% in masters and like a 90% if you have a PhD, because you get put into the system more times. And so, but then in my MSAS program, I really learned how to do project management really, really well. And because of the way my job is, and I'm going and doing different types of projects, like it's really helped that organization and project management for different things. You can go into a project from scratch, like, and build it towards like somebody else can take over and be sustainable in that way. Or you could even jump straight in like halfway through a project and still know what to do. So nope, I don't regret my decision.
And I did the Master of Sustainability at ASU and SOS, the Master of Arts program. Lindsay was my advisor. And so I don't regret that either. I think like I said at the beginning, I always wanted to go to grad school. And then I think timing and life kind of worked out to where it made the most sense to stay at ASU afterwards. I was doing a lot with K-12 sustainability education, had a lot of connections in the community, or starting to, and I wanted to really kind of dig more into the research that I was doing. So I really, really valued the research training in my degree program. It was really different than what I expected because they're kind of truly training you to be a faculty member one day. And I quickly realized I probably don't want to be a faculty member one day, which is okay. But SOS was great in that they were really flexible with me, and I was able to have committee members from other departments and actually other colleges. I had a committee member from U of A who had a specialty in school gardens that I didn't have participate. So I really liked that I still got great research training, which translates into project and program management, which is what I do now really well. Just what's your theoretical backing for why you're approaching something? How do you implement a project? And then how do you use good research practices to do evaluation with your participants or with communities, those sorts of things. So I really enjoyed it. We had some long nights, some long days, but yeah, I really enjoyed it and liked staying here at ASU for it.
Mariam, I think you answered my next question. That was about how being an international student has colored your experience with all this being a student leader. Is there any more you need to add, or you feel like you covered it?
I think I covered most of it. Like coming from Asia, the thing that was different for me was I was in a British education system. That's how we were structured. So everything was based on exams. And when I came to the States, everything's kind of like, certain percentages from presentations, homework, tests, participation. That was something that that was so hard for me in class, like to speak up and like have like your own opinion on something. Because in Asia, you're basically taught what the teacher teaches you, and that's the only opinion that matters. Right. And so to like relearn and kind of like advocate for yourself and like what you really thought about the subject matter was like challenging for me. And like obviously in SOS, like it was a smaller group, so it was easier to adapt into. But yeah, like cultural differences when I came to like relearn how Americans like what was expected of you here versus back home.
Maria, you went from being a student leader to now you work with our student leaders. You've learned a lot in that process. Like, what's the bit of wisdom you most want to share? Like, essentially, why did you and I put this program on together?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. My wisdom for other student leaders is to stop and smell the flowers. Like I'm learning things about my peers here today, and I wish I had spent some more time to hear about what education is like in Malaysia, and to understand how that was different and how that could color my sustainability buddies experience at ASU, having been her mentor buddy. So yeah, so take the time to get to know the people in your clubs, and build those. I would encourage building those relationships, because as Garrett had mentioned and eloquently said, you know, it can be about the breadth, but the depth also of those relationships. So if you can't, like, take the time to be able to slow down, appreciate where you all are doing amazing things. So I hope that you are able to appreciate, you know, folks who are on study abroad right now who might be tuning in. Like, I hope you're appreciating what you've achieved. And so you're taking the time to slow down and do that. If you feel like you can't slow down and do that, let's chat. I'd love to chat about how maybe we can reorganize some things and just how to help out. And I'd say that's also my general offer for students, whether you consider yourself a student leader or not, is ask for help. You are in, again, like one of the smaller academic units at ASU. Like, I encourage you to raise your hand for help when you need it. There's somebody eagerly waiting to help you. And also raise your hand if you want to help, if you can think of things to make things better. Like, please, I encourage you all to do that. So that's my bit of wisdom.
Garrett, you've been gone the longest. 2 whole classes of graduates have gone since you've been here. I can't believe it's been that long. But are there things that have changed for you now? You're, I think, in your 3rd job, right? The 3rd company that you work for.
Yeah.
Are there things that are different for you now that you're more of sort of what, maybe a mid-career person rather than somebody who is just starting out?
Oh, goodness. Kevin loves to make me feel old.
You'll
I'd
never
say-
be as old as I am, Garrett.
Oh, goodness. I don't even want to know how old the kids are. Like, interests and passions, I guess, as it revolves around sustainability, those have certainly remained the same. I think you learn as you go along with the jobs. You hear about all of these different industries, career paths, organizations that you didn't even know existed. And I think there are still some of those core pieces of why all 5 of us and all the folks in the room got involved in this sustainability space and what that drove us to do in our careers. I think all of those have still remained, you know, pillars, at least in my career. I'd say one thing that's probably changed, though, is just the outlook on how much is out there. I mentioned it earlier, like there's so many industries, so many other colleagues of mine that I'm meeting even here in Portland, that I didn't know were conversations that were happening locally here in city government, that are, you know, outside of the realm, either in the Columbia River Gorge with some of the nonprofits and the relationship with some of the indigenous peoples here in the Pacific Northwest. Just so many different conversations I didn't know that were going on and wanted to get further engaged in. I think just the amazing work that's out there happening all around us is so inspiring for me. And I think that's definitely helped, as I've transitioned between different industries, really understand that all of us have a specific set of skills, you know, areas that we're growing on as professionals, but there's so many different areas of the sustainability industry as a whole that need to be tackled, between the airline industry, the event space, education, and so many different things. But there can't be, you know, one Garrett Wong going everywhere doing all the things. One Julia can only, you know, tackle so much, but there are going to be Marias and Danielles and Mariams in other industries and jobs doing incredible work just like you are in their own right. And I think it's so fun to hear about all of that work that's taking place out there. And I think you just continue to learn more and more as you get farther along in your career. And it's, I mean, I didn't have a chance to make it out to GreenBiz, but even hearing the stories coming out from there, all the colleagues of mine that attended, it was so so cool to see the great work that's really been really like escalating over the past few years. It's been really fun.
All right, you all have to pick one thing for this question only. What was the most impactful experience you had while at ASU? Maria, you want to start? You have the mic.
It's hard to pick, but I was thinking it's the Killam Fellowship. It was being an exchange student in Canada. Because it was the one that I was most it was the one that took me the most out of my comfort zone. If you don't know, I'm from Tempe. ASU was the school in my backyard. I had friends from high school who went into the SOS program with me. Like I was very much in a nice, safe, comfortable bubble here, and I loved it. But so it was until I was an exchange student when I really learned what I didn't know, and what I needed to like mature on. So that was a really impactful experience.
Are we going down?
Yeah, just go down.
For me, it was completing my honors thesis project. It was the first time that I really took ownership of a project. I feel like a research project from start to finish, and there was no one to save me because it was mine. But it was really rewarding, and I very vividly remember the day when my friends and family came to the defense right before the news of the pandemic hit. So I escaped just in time. Got to do my defense.
Mine was probably a study abroad trip to Denmark in the UK. That was one of the Walton ones where we did research on urban agriculture and community resilience for 6 weeks. And with one of Maria's friends, Annika, her and I did a food waste research project and ended up doing research also on co-housing in Denmark. So got a ton of research experience, which was really helpful in helping me figure out that I wanted to go to grad school and kind of keep that as part of my life. And then I also met my husband on that trip. So that was very impactful. Oh, gross. Yeah, but that was a good one.
Garrett answered in the chat, I saw, so
Yeah.
meeting me, that's great. Is that really the answer?
Mario, go ahead.
For me, I think it was mentoring other international students like me because I came alone. Like I've never traveled anywhere alone in my life when I came to ASU. Because my first time traveling abroad, I didn't have my family with me. Like my parents cut off like their funds, so it was just based on scholarship and everything, and just transition. I remember even trying to figure out learn what the different mobile service providers were so foreign. I was like, what? And to me, and I spoke English, right? Like it wasn't like a completely foreign language. I just spoke British English, but I watched movies, so I knew what is American English. I wouldn't be able to tell you which one is which, but I understand. So being able to help other students like me, even go to the bank, being that translator, even though I don't speak the same language as them, but still be able to pick up on their type of English that they're used to and going into this, the speed that they understand and actually making a difference based on that was really impactful for me. I still talk to them today. One of my friends, I'm getting married in April in Malaysia, and one of my student mentees are flying out from Korea to see me. So that was my most impactful experience.
You're really sticking with that answer, Garrett. Okay, great. I appreciate it.
No, I want to answer.
Oh, Julia doesn't believe that's your real answer.
I mean, if I had to give a second answer and go against Kevin saying only give one answer, I'd probably say I did a capstone course my senior year, focused on sports and sustainability. From that, we were able to build out a sustainability plan for the Final Four tournament that happened in 2017. From that engagement, I jumped on as the chief of staff for the sustainability committee. From there, got a job as the member services manager for the Green Sports Alliance. All of that potentially, essentially propelling myself into the career I have now, all from a capstone course that I took at SOS.
You hadn't talked about that yet, and I didn't
No.
know why, so that's good.
No. If you knew Garrett, you knew sustainability in sports. That defined Garrett while during his time here. So, okay. So to wrap things up, my last question that I have for you all: what did you all do right? As you were the outstanding graduate for your year, what did you do right? The short version.
I think
Send you
oh,
questions in
I know,
advance.
I thought I wrote tech notes and stuff too. So I think what I did was probably try, kind of like Danielle said earlier, try a lot of different things. Even though of course there's some things I wish I could change. I didn't have like one just, and I was able and had the privilege to be able to try a lot of different jobs and stuff like that. But I was a research aide, I was an intern, I worked as a student worker, I was in clubs and stuff like that. So I think being able to jump around quite a bit and just meet a lot of different people, try different things you do during the day at work. I feel like I have a pretty good sense of like what I like to do during a day, and going through lots of different types of classes and student leadership experiences, study abroad and stuff gave me a good sense of what I like and don't like to do. And then being able to intersect that with what you're interested in is really important, I think, to just having a meaningful work-life balance longer term. So I like that I tried a lot of different stuff.
I am really happy with the friendships I've made. I feel like there's a handful of them that are completely lifelong. They're probably gonna be invited to my wedding one day. So I'm really grateful for that. I guess colleagues, but I consider my colleagues to be my friends.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, you get nominated to be the outstanding graduate by staff and faculty of the school. So I think like what I did right was I showed up to things. I went to office hours. I got to know my professors really well. Maybe I did like an honors contract with them. And then I also went to all sorts of events. Like I met Beth, who you all know, by like getting lost on our way to Adelphi. But then like further on got to know Kevin and Abby and folks really well by just being around. Couldn't get rid of me.
For me, like before I came to the States, my mom told me don't default to getting to know like Malaysians, because there was obviously a Malaysian Student Association. And people are like clinging, like when you look at international students, they default to finding people that came from the same country or kind of the same region. But what I did was the complete opposite. I started knowing, like getting to know Americans and who they are, what their culture is. And I started that by being in the dorms and getting to know basically my peers, and building that, and then international students, and then getting to know the Malaysians, and then having that holistic experience overall has been like, I think one of the reasons I would say is just like, I didn't like, if you're solely academic or you're solely just extracurriculars, there's like no balance. But if you experience a little bit of everything, and you won't like regret your decision because you tried a little bit of everything, so.
I feel like just continuing to ask questions and going a little bit extra goes a long way. I think it, from what everyone said today, it's the internships, it's the student leadership, it's getting to know your peers, getting to know your professors. And I think all that being said is just you can, attend school, period, end of sentence, or you could really, dive in and experience all that ASU and the college have to offer. And I think with that comes your own personal comfortability of what 110% means to you. And certainly ensuring that, all of that coursework is stuff that you want to learn and stuff that you want to do. All of these student leadership engagements are things that you think will be beneficial for you and your own career path, because from all of these experiences that ASU has, there are so many unique pathways. I'm sure that you've heard from this group of people that none of us have the same story. None of us have the same, title at the end of the day, but all of us have this shared experience of doing a little bit more within our undergraduate time and even within some of their graduate times. And I think just being able to do as much as you can with the time that you've got. That's all I have to say.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank our panel. We can clap first. I'll say more. When all of these students were students, when all these alumni were students, you're still students to me. I was each of their academic advisor. I've met with them many, many times. I've had very cool experiences. Mariam and Julia and I were on the roof of the Mall of America together. Danielle and I were on Catalina Island, on the pier of the USC's Wrigley Institute, and driving and jammed into an SUV with 8 other people through Los Angeles. Garrett and we were at the opening day of the Seattle Mariners and I don't drink coffee, but we had Starbucks at Starbucks in Seattle. Julia was there too. So I had a great chance to get to know these students really well during their time here and get to kind of live through their academic experience. Yeah, humble brag, yeah. Julia and I actually had a class together. We took global change together. And it was an incredible experience for me as an advisor, as a staff person, to have that. And I'm deeply appreciative that little did they know they came in for an advising appointment. And 8 years later, I'm still texting them. So I appreciate that you all answered. You all answered my texts and emails pretty much immediately, which I appreciate. So thank you for being here to share with our current students. There's a lot of yous in the room right now, which makes me real happy. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you to our audience, both here in the room and on Zoom. I wanted to say that if you are like one of these alumni and you have a lot going on, we have Maria and I, who are happy to talk to you about extracurricular activities. We have our wonderful academic advising team that can help steer you in the right direction of what you need. We have our career services team that Caroline leads that is here to help you with all those internship, mentorship, job search questions. I know a lot of you, when you registered, you had job search questions, which really wasn't what this topic was about today, but we have a great team that can help you with that. So please take advantage of any of the teams we have here. I'm sure most of our alumni, we can help connect you with people who have an interest in the thing that you're into. And some of them work in this building, so you'll find them very easily. And I just wanted to plug that the next big event happening in the College of Global Futures is our community lunch that the College Council is putting on March 15th. So check out Sun Devil Sync, Instagram, all that stuff for the next event. So thank you for coming and have a great day.